Hey guys, today we begin not with philosophy in a dusty library, but with you rubbing your eyes at sunrise. You stumble through your morning coffee, shower, keys, the familiar rhythm. Everything feels automatic, as if the universe already scripted it. Work, relationships, goals, routines, they all seem to carry their own momentum. And yet, here's the jarring pause. Why does any of this matter? You probably won't survive this line of questioning, not unscathed at least. It isn't just a clever puzzle, but a blow that cracks open the foundation beneath your feet. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from, and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing the map light up with night owls, early birds, and those in-between wanderers. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Because the truth is, if someone pressed you on that question, you'd likely give an answer borrowed from someone else. Success, happiness, making a difference, all concepts you inherited like hand-me-down clothes. Nietzsche, standing in the 19th century, would cut you off mid-sentence. He'd ask sharply, whose idea of success? Whose definition of happiness? And by what standard are you measuring this supposed difference you want to make? Over a century ago, he diagnosed something our world is only now catching up to. We are still playing by rules for a game that no longer exists. Think of it like a stadium where the players are gone, the fans have left, but the floodlights are still buzzing overhead, and you're wandering on the field in costume, reciting lines from a play no one is watching. The script you follow was written by authors long dead. Worse yet, you don't even realize you're acting. This is where Nietzsche dropped his infamous line, "God is dead." People misinterpret it as a triumphant declaration, a secular cheer. But in truth, he was not celebrating. He was delivering a terminal diagnosis. Imagine a doctor sitting across from you, hands folded, saying quietly, "It's gone. The center that held your world together has collapsed." That was Nietzsche's intent. To tell civilization it had lost its organizing principle. For thousands of years, meaning had been given from above. The divine plan was the invisible glue that kept chaos at bay. Even if you didn't understand it, there was still reassurance. There was a reason. But what happens when you realize there is no plan? When the curtain is pulled and you see the stage is empty, the script forgotten. You find yourself not in a story but in a cold machinery of physics and chemistry, an indifferent cosmos that doesn't care whether you rise or fall. And here's the truly strange part. Most people still haven't grappled with this. They walk around having quietly abandoned belief in God, yet continue to live as if He exists. They carry forward Christian morality without Christianity, justice without metaphysics, duty without divine sanction. They chase success and happiness as if these were universal truths rather than cultural inventions. Imagine following traffic laws in a world where there are no cars. You're still stopping at red lights, looking both ways, waiting for a flow of traffic that will never arrive. Nietzsche called this sleepwalking obedience a hidden slavery. And before we move deeper, pause and reflect. How many of your choices today, your career, your relationships, even your hobbies, were freely chosen? How many were scripts written by your parents, your culture, your faith, or even by the vague notion of society? Trace your inner compass far enough back, and you'll discover it was calibrated long before you could read. This is why Nietzsche introduced the unsettling concept of slave morality. It wasn't about chains and whips, but about invisible strings tugging at your behavior. You believe you're free, yet your compass is borrowed. And even if you rebel, say you dye your hair, pierce your lip, reject your parents' religion, you're still dancing to their tune. Because rebellion is still reaction. The punk rocker shocking polite society is just as chained to that society as the conformist in a suit. One plays the music forward, the other backward, but both are stuck on the same record. This realization is terrifying. You want there to be a correct path, a right way, a single star to guide your ship. But Nietzsche insists there isn't one. As long as you search for external validation, for some cosmic referee to blow the whistle, you avoid the real task of existence, to create your own meaning. That's not liberating. That's dizzying. It's like standing at the edge of a canyon, realizing you must build the bridge yourself, plank by plank, over an abyss, and no one can guarantee it will hold. Most people pretend the canyon isn't there. They busy themselves with errands, promotions, entertainment. Others stand paralyzed, waiting for an architect who never arrives. But Nietzsche wants you to see it. The abyss yawning beneath your feet, the bridge not yet built, the materials scattered around you. He believed that only in facing this void can you begin the work of self-creation. And yet, how do you begin? Nietzsche described 3 transformations of the spirit. The first, the camel, is the beast of burden, kneeling to take on the weight of thou shalt. The camel is the dutiful child, the obedient worker, the reliable citizen, each of them hauling expectations they never chose. They mistake obedience for virtue, calling the heaviest load the greatest honor. But the camel is only the beginning. The next stage, the lion, must roar no. It rips apart inherited values, tears down monuments to dead gods. It revels in destruction, breaking chains, clawing through illusions. Yet even the lion risks becoming trapped, forever snarling, forever rebelling, defined only by what it denies. The atheist who won't stop talking about God, the critic who builds nothing but wreckage. Rebellion frees, but does not fulfill. Finally, the child. The child forgets. The child does not rebel against rules, it invents new ones. It creates playfully, like a kid in the sand, drawing lines and then erasing them with laughter. For Nietzsche, this was the highest spirit, a being who no longer asks permission from heaven or earth, who writes values as easily as a child invents games. To be fully human, he argued, is to create values with that same joyous absorption, that same lack of self-consciousness. One must still have chaos in oneself, Nietzsche wrote, to give birth to a dancing star. Chaos here is not disorder, but potential, raw possibility. Yet most people, frightened of that inner chaos, cling to routines and rituals. They'd rather live in false order than stand naked before the void. They'd rather let teachers, pastors, governments, or even influencers tell them what life means, than face the responsibility of deciding for themselves. But here lies the cruelty of our age. The very systems designed to educate us often rob us of the courage to create. You're taught to analyze, critique, deconstruct, but never to build. By adulthood, you've become so skilled at tearing illusions apart that you no longer believe in anything. Too smart to be duped, but too timid to invent. Paralyzed in limbo, you remain a camel, or, at best, a lion stuck roaring forever. Nietzsche saw where this paralysis leads: nihilism. the belief that nothing matters. And yet, he insisted this abyss isn't an end but a beginning. The abyss is not a void to fear, it is a space to build. To confront it, you must first admit it exists. And that, my friend, is the journey we've just stepped into together. You are standing on the edge of that abyss, and Nietzsche whispers that your compass, your entire sense of right and wrong, was never really yours. Think of how often you say, "This feels right," or "That feels wrong." Trace those feelings back, and you will find the fingerprints of your parents, your culture, your faith, your education. Even when you rebel, your rebellion is calibrated against the very values you reject. You are still orbiting the same gravity well, unable to escape its pull. This is what Nietzsche meant by slave morality. You imagine freedom, but your choices are scripted. You are either following the text obediently or reading the negative image, still bound to the same manuscript. The conformist in a suit and the punk in chains are both actors on the same stage, both controlled by the invisible playwright. The danger is subtle because it feels like autonomy, but it's not. It's still reaction, not creation. Look again at the camel. This is the spirit of duty, the one who kneels and asks for more weight, the good employee who sacrifices weekends, the student who obeys every instruction, the child who lives only to please their parents. These are not villains, they are admired. Society calls them responsible, reliable, virtuous. But Nietzsche pulls back the curtain and reveals, they are camels, hauling the burdens of thou shalt across deserts they did not choose to cross. They measure their worth not by freedom, but by how much they can carry. The camel believes endurance is honor. And perhaps you see yourself here counting your value in the hours you work, the duties you fulfill, the expectations you meet. But to Nietzsche, this was not the summit of humanity. It was only the beginning. He compared the human spirit to a metamorphosis, like an animal shedding skins. First the camel, then the lion, then the child. The lion roars, no. It smashes chains, defies expectations, claws down the monuments of tradition. The lion creates freedom by destruction. It is thrilling, intoxicating the power of negation, the wild taste of rebellion. But Nietzsche warns, many remain lions forever, trapped in their endless no. They become professional rebels, critics who sneer at everything but build nothing. They are still tethered, defined by the things they fight against. The real transformation comes only with the child. The child does not waste breath rebelling, because it has already forgotten the old rules. It is too busy inventing new games, scribbling new laws into the sand, laughing when they are erased and rewritten. Creation comes naturally, joyfully. The child does not need cosmic permission or divine approval. It is absorbed in the act of inventing, alive in the rhythm of play. But to reach that childlike spirit, you must confront chaos. Not the chaos of confusion, but the chaos of potential. Nietzsche writes, one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. And here is the tragedy. Most people fear their own chaos. They cling to false order, rigid routines, inherited beliefs, ready-made moral codes because these soothe the terror of facing the void. They would rather obey dead rules than stand before the abyss with the power and the responsibility to create. Look at modern life, and you will see this fear everywhere. People cling to relationships long dead, jobs they despise, identities they outgrew. Not because these things fulfill them, but because they provide scaffolding. They offer structure in a structureless universe. It is easier to endure emptiness than to risk invention. And here's the cruel twist. The very institutions that should help you create meaning often do the opposite. Our schools and universities train us to analyze, critique, and deconstruct, but rarely to build. You are taught to peel apart every idea, expose every illusion, dismantle every narrative. By the time you're grown, you're fluent in skepticism, but mute in creation. You can explain why every value is arbitrary, every belief is culturally relative, every truth is fragile. But when asked to build something of your own, you freeze. You see this paralysis in the educated classes. Too clever to fall for old myths, but too timid to invent new myths. Too philosophical to believe in illusions, but too fragile to create the necessary illusions of their own. They live in limbo, neither faithful nor free, stuck forever in analysis. Nietzsche saw this as the breeding ground for nihilism. When the old scaffolding collapses, and you lack the courage to build new pillars, you fall into emptiness. Nothing matters. Nothing compels. The abyss yawns wider, and you retreat into distraction. Passive nihilism becomes the default. You scroll your feeds, binge your shows, chase weekend pleasures, half aware that you are killing time, yet what is time but life itself? The passive nihilist is not evil. They are tired. They settle for comfort instead of creation, amusement instead of purpose. They choose numbness because invention is terrifying. And in this numbness, society becomes populated with camels who carry burdens, lions who roar endlessly, and thinkers who only deconstruct. But Nietzsche insists, this is not the end. The abyss is not final. It is a beginning, if you dare. The void where meaning collapses can also be the blank canvas where new meaning is painted. And to take that first brushstroke, you must admit that the void exists. You must look directly into the chaos within yourself, stop fleeing from it, and start shaping it. Already you can feel the tension. Rebellion is not enough. Negation is not enough. To move beyond paralysis, you must step into creation. And for Nietzsche, this was the terrifying, liberating possibility that awaited humanity. That we could forge meaning not because the universe demands it, but because we choose it. And yet, even here at this precipice, most will turn back. Most will pretend the void is a mirage. Most will keep obeying, keep rebelling, keep distracting themselves because the next step, the step into authorship, feels unbearable. The question is, will you? You have stood long enough at the threshold, staring into the abyss, weighing whether to pretend it doesn't exist. But Nietzsche won't let you. He pushes you forward, and suddenly the roar of the lion fills your ears. The lion is the second transformation of the spirit. Where the camel bore the burdens of thou shalt, the lion refuses them all. It shakes the sand from its back, bares its teeth, and declares, no more. You've seen the lion before. It is the rebel tearing down institutions, the artist ripping apart conventions, the activist smashing idols. The lion's power lies in destruction. Its greatness is its ability to liberate. Yet Nietzsche warns, liberation is not creation. The lion tears down cages, but unless something new is built, freedom itself becomes a prison. Think of the atheist who cannot stop speaking of God, or the critic who demolishes every work yet writes none of their own, or the revolutionary who defines themselves only by opposition to an enemy. These are lions stuck roaring forever, unable to move beyond the thrill of negation. The roar is necessary, it clears the ground, but it is not enough. The real metamorphosis arrives when the lion becomes the child, The child does not waste energy rebelling against the old game because it has already forgotten the rules. The child invents new games. It draws patterns in the sand, then erases them and draws again, laughing at its own freedom. The child creates joyfully, experimentally, without needing cosmic permission or historical precedent. This is Nietzsche's vision of true humanity: to create values as playfully as children create games, to invent worlds without fear, to test meaning as if sketching with chalk on the pavement, knowing it may wash away tomorrow. The child is not burdened by the weight of thou shalt, nor chained to the eternal no. It exists in the realm of pure possibility, where creation is as natural as breath. But to become this childlike creator, you must embrace chaos, not the chaos of confusion, but the chaos of raw potential. Nietzsche's words echo here. One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. Chaos is the soil from which creation sprouts. It is not something to suppress, but something to cultivate. Yet most people recoil. They prefer the false safety of rigid systems, clinging to calendars, doctrines, ideologies, routines. They mistake rigidity for security. They would rather accept dead order than face the uncertainty of authentic creation. Look around. The evidence is everywhere. The endless scroll of social media, the binge-watching marathons, the carefully optimized routines designed to numb. People distract themselves not because they are fulfilled, but because creating meaning feels impossibly heavy. They avoid chaos by drowning in noise. This is where nihilism creeps in. But Nietzsche distinguished between two kinds. Passive nihilism is resignation. Nothing matters. So why bother? It manifests as comfort-seeking, as small pleasures, as the quiet surrender of potential. The passive nihilist is the one who trades risk for safety, growth for stability, creation for consumption. But active nihilism is different. Active nihilism says, nothing inherently matters, and therefore I am free to create what does. It is the demolition crew that clears ground for new construction. It embraces destruction as liberation, not tragedy. It does not mourn the death of God, it sees in that death the birth of human responsibility. Think about it this way. Passive nihilism is the endless cycle of killing time. Active nihilism is the decision to use that time as clay, to mold something out of nothing. Passive nihilism scrolls and scrolls, waiting for meaning to appear. Active nihilism picks up the brush and paints, even if the canvas is blank. Modern life provides endless examples of both. Passive nihilism is the endless pursuit of mild pleasure, comfort food, easy entertainment, curated digital lives. Active nihilism is riskier, rarer. The entrepreneur building something no one asked for, the artist inventing a style that might be laughed at, the thinker proposing values with no guarantee they will last. The choice is yours. Kill time or forge meaning. One path numbs you into quiet extinction. The other pushes you into terrifying freedom. Nietzsche insists, creation must emerge from the rubble, and that rubble, that cleared ground is your chaos. But beware, embracing chaos is not glamorous. It is not a romantic self-discovery retreat. It feels like standing at the edge of a canyon, building your bridge plank by plank, praying it will hold. It means risking failure, humiliation, loneliness. It means others will call you naive, foolish, arrogant. But only in chaos does the possibility of the child appear. Only here do you stop reacting and start inventing. Imagine it. You sit in your room at night, no gods whispering instructions, no cultural script to follow. It's just you, the silence, the blank page. Most flee from this moment. They'll switch on a show, pick up their phone, text a friend, anything to avoid the raw encounter with nothingness. But if you sit in that silence long enough, you begin to hear something new. Not commands from heaven, not hand-me-down scripts, but your own faint voice, sketching, inventing, testing. That is the first laugh of the child. And so Nietzsche leaves you here, on the cusp. Will you remain a lion, forever roaring, forever breaking, but never building? Or will you take the leap into play, into invention, into the chaos that births stars? The choice, terrifying and liberating, is now yours. You've roared, you've smashed, you've glimpsed the playfulness of the child. But Nietzsche knows that play alone is fragile unless it is forged in fire. Now the crucible appears, and he names the heat that drives it, the will to power. Most people misunderstand this phrase. They think of domination armies marching, rulers oppressing, empires sprawling. But Nietzsche meant something subtler and far more demanding. Will to power is not control over others, it is mastery over yourself. It is the artist compelled to paint, though no one may ever see the canvas. The athlete training before dawn, long before medals are handed out. The thinker who questions not to win debates, but because something inside demands it. Will to power is the drive to expand the edges of your being, to overcome who you were yesterday. And this overcoming, Nietzsche says, happens not in comfort, but in struggle. What does not destroy me makes me stronger. These words are so often flattened into a motivational slogan, but for Nietzsche, they were alchemy. Every wound, every failure, every humiliation is raw ore. Alone, it is meaningless, but transformed, worked upon by your will, it becomes strength, resilience, creation. You do not find silver linings, you forge them. You do not discover meaning in your suffering, you impose meaning upon it. You become the blacksmith of your own experience, hammering chaos into form. Think back to the times you've suffered. The heartbreak, the rejection, the job that collapsed beneath you. At first, each feels like a senseless blow. But step back and you realize, you are not the same as before. Something hardened, or sharpened, or deepened. Not because fate was kind, but because you bent fate into something you could carry. This is the forge of the will to power. Nietzsche presses further. There are no facts, only interpretations. At first, this sounds like relativism, like the denial of truth. But for him, it is responsibility. The facts of your life are what happened. You lost the job. You were betrayed. You failed the exam. Those are facts. But what they mean, failure or rebirth, curse or lesson, that is interpretation. And interpretation is authorship. Interpretations are not abstract. They shape your reality. If you call your life a tragedy, you live inside its script. If you frame it as an adventure, you live as a hero. If you interpret betrayal as the end of trust, you close your heart. If you interpret it as a painful education, you open differently, perhaps more wisely. Meaning is not found lying under the rubble, it is written by you onto the rubble. This responsibility becomes clearest in Nietzsche's most haunting thought experiment, the eternal recurrence. Imagine, he says, that you must live your exact life, down to every detail, again and again for all eternity. Every mistake, every joy, every sleepless night on repeat, forever. How do you respond? Do you curse the demon who tells you this, or do you rejoice and whisper, "You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine"? The eternal recurrence is not metaphysics, it is a test. Could you affirm your life so completely that you would choose it again, exactly as it is? If not, what would you change? What parts of your life would you rather never see again? And why are you living them now, if you wouldn't choose them forever? This thought experiment presses upon you like a weight. Suddenly the stakes of your daily choices sharpen. Each moment is not disposable, it is infinite. Each decision you make echoes forever, not because the universe demands it, but because you are the one writing the script. To live as though you would affirm your life eternally is to take authorship with deadly seriousness. And here Nietzsche's forge glows white-hot. To say yes to your life is not to pretend it is easy, or beautiful, or painless. It is to take ownership of it all, the scars, the stumbles, the chaos, and say, "This too I created. This too I will use." It is not passive acceptance, but active transformation. You are not submitting to fate. You are wielding fate as material. Consider how different this is from the passive drifting that fills so many lives. People slide into careers, into relationships, into habits, never having chosen them. They live on autopilot, then one day wake up and realize their days are loops they never authored. The eternal recurrence asks, would you willingly relive this loop forever? If not, why endure it even once? Here is the dividing line. On one side, the passive, who surrender authorship, who let interpretations be handed to them, who suffer without forging. On the other, those who take up the hammer, who pound the raw events of their lives into self-chosen significance. Those who say yes to existence, not because it is kind, but because it is theirs. The forge is open before you now. The fire is hot. The metal is ready. What will you hammer from the chaos? What shape will you impose on the raw ore of your days? You cannot escape the responsibility. You can only choose to wield it or deny it. And if you deny it, someone else will write your meaning for you, and you will carry it like the camel you once were. So ask yourself, if tonight you heard the whisper of eternal recurrence, if you knew your life would replay forever, would you rejoice? Would you affirm? Or would you fall silent, terrified, realizing you've lived a script not your own? Now you arrive at the final turn, where Nietzsche offers not despair but affirmation. Out of the rubble of destroyed idols and the silence of dead gods rises a single demand. Amor fati, love your fate. Not resignation, not submission, but a fierce embrace. To say yes not only to joy but to sorrow, not only to triumph but to humiliation, not only to gain but to loss. Everything that made you who you are becomes raw material. The brush is in your hand, the canvas waits, and even the darkest paint is necessary for the picture to exist. Think of the setbacks you've endured, the friendship that fractured, the job that slipped away, the dream that collapsed. Each of these moments could be read as curses, but Nietzsche asks you to see them as ingredients, as clay. Without them, you would not be the person holding the brush now. Amor fati means you stop wishing for a different past, and instead affirm the exact one you lived. Only then can you step fully into authorship. Yet most people recoil. They prefer the safe mediocrity Nietzsche called the last man. The last man is comfortable, content, endlessly entertained. He blinks and shrugs at questions of love, longing, creation, and greatness. He asks for nothing higher than distraction. He is the ultimate consumer, devouring experiences and products in an endless attempt to fill the meaning-shaped hole inside. And yet, he feels nothing but numbness. He mistakes his quiet death in life for happiness. This is the world Nietzsche feared would come, and perhaps the world you recognize around you. The quiet office hum, the endless weekend distractions, the polite conversations where no one asks why we live at all. A civilization of last men, living without risk, without creation, without affirmation. But you still listening, still uneasy, are not doomed to be among them. You have another choice. Nietzsche hands you not comfort, but a kit, crude but powerful. First, name your inherited scripts. Look at the definitions of success and happiness you carry. Ask, whose voices are these? Your parents, your culture, the church you left but never quite escaped. Write them down. Name them so they lose their invisible grip. Second, practice a daily creative act. It does not have to be monumental. 100 words written, a sketch drawn, a phrase of music played. Each act says, I create because I can, because the child inside me plays with values, with shapes, with meaning itself. Third, conduct a weekly recurrence check. Ask yourself, if this week repeated forever, would I rejoice? If not, what will I alter next week? This simple ritual forces your life into focus, sharpening your authorship with each choice. These tools are not doctrines. They are beginnings. Small acts of authorship in a world that tells you to consume, obey, distract. They are ways to resist becoming the last man, ways to step into the forge, to test the bridge across the abyss, to hear the laughter of the child. And now Nietzsche leans closer, as if to whisper, stop asking, what is the meaning of life? That question is a ghost, a trap, a relic of dead gods. Instead, ask, what meaning will I create? Stop waiting for purpose to descend from the sky. Start forging purpose from raw existence. Stop seeking permission from the cosmos. Start validating yourself through creation. It is not easy. Nietzsche himself broke under the strain. He carried the weight of total responsibility, the loneliness of authentic creation, the tension of crafting meaning in a meaningless universe. It consumed him. But the alternative is worse. To die carrying burdens you never chose, living a life you would never affirm, painting a canvas that remains blank because you waited for someone else to tell you what to draw. So here you are, brush in hand, chaos swirling around you, the abyss waiting beneath. You can cling to ghost rules, follow dead gods, live as a camel forever. Or you can roar as the lion, and then laugh as the child, and create values so alive they shine in the darkness. Your life is not a riddle to be solved. It is a canvas to be painted. Yes, the act is arbitrary. Yes, the universe offers no guarantee. But that arbitrariness is not an excuse, it is the reason. Because in a cosmos that refuses to hand out meaning, creation becomes the most meaningful act of all. So I leave you with the question that closes Nietzsche's work and begins yours. Not whether life has meaning, but whether you have the courage to create it. Not whether your path is true, but whether you have the strength to be your own God. Not whether the abyss is terrifying, but whether you will dance above it as a child inventing games. What will you create? And now, let's soften the pace. You've walked through fire and stared into the abyss, but as the night deepens, let your shoulders drop. Breathe slower. Feel the weight of the words dissolve like mist. Yes, life presses hard. Yes, chaos waits inside you. But for tonight, you do not need to roar or fight or build. You can simply rest in the knowledge that tomorrow the canvas will still be there, waiting patiently. Each morning arrives like a fresh sheet of paper, blank and forgiving. Each choice is a brushstroke, gentle or bold, and there is no rush to finish the painting. Let the images soften, the camel setting down its load, the lion curling into silence after the roar, the child asleep with crayons scattered on the floor. Even Nietzsche, stern diagnostician, would want you to close your eyes now. His questions were harsh, but their purpose was always to wake you, not to keep you restless through the night. So imagine your chaos, not as storm, but as stars scattered across a quiet sky. Imagine your burdens dissolving like chalk in the rain. Imagine your future meanings glowing faintly, like lanterns waiting to be lit. You do not need to seize them tonight. You only need to breathe, to rest, to trust that the act of creation can wait for morning. The world outside hums faintly, like the fan in your room. The air is cool, the light is low, and the story has slowed into a whisper. Let your eyes grow heavy, your body sink deeper, your mind drift gently. For tonight, creation can sleep. For tonight, affirmation is enough.